My name is Todd Presner. I'm a professor here at UCLA in the Department of Germanic Languages and the program in Comparative Literature. I chair our Digital Humanities program and serve a number of capacities at UCLA in the field of research in the humanities, social sciences, and the arts. It's a great pleasure to welcome you today to the first public partnership between UCLA and the Thomas Mann House and the Villa Aurora, the three major partners behind the program today, Moral Code, Ethics, and the Digital Age. It's great to welcome you all here this morning, and we expect to have a full day of conversation and engagement with pressing contemporary issues around the digital. I should say a little bit of background about this program, which originated, I don't know if Nikolai may have stepped out. Where is he at? I want to make sure you know who he is. Because the idea of this program didn't start with me, but rather a conversation between the current director of the Thomas Mann House, Nikolai Blaumer, and really a conversation around what we could do together in terms of a public program on an issue of urgent global concern, one that is unraveling, unfolding in complex ways every day. And of course we came on to the subject of not only AI and questions around big data and questions around digital and ethics, but we wanted to approach these issues in a truly interdisciplinary fashion. That is to say, by bringing philosophers together with artists, and artists together with brain scientists, and brain scientists together with engineers, folks from information studies connected with folks in neurosurgery, and media studies and the medical fields. And of course, we began thinking really, really large very quickly. And the program you have today is in some ways quite compact, given how capacious our thinking was. But I do believe it reflects the truly interdisciplinary modes of inquiry that we wanted between scientists, artists, humanists, social scientists, folks working in the new information economy. So it's really wonderful to welcome so many fellows here today, visiting faculty, and everyone who will be speaking at today's program. A little bit of background about, there's Nikolai. So Nikolai, I gave us a background about where this program began, but I do want to make sure that you're aware that Nikolai is the director of the Thomas Mann House and as much responsible for the contours of this program as I am. So thank you so much for your work. A little bit of background about the Thomas Mann House, our partner today. It was this, obviously the home of Thomas Mann when he was in exile in Los Angeles. It was recently, in 2016, acquired by the Federal Republic of Germany, particularly the Federal Foreign Affairs Office, and was meant to be revived as a place of reflection and discussion on the common challenges and issues of our time. It was not only to make linkages across the oceans, Pacific and Atlantic, I should say, but it was also to think about what the echo of the exile culture may mean today. So not only Mann, but Adorno, and Horkheimer, and Brecht, and Eisler, and Schoenberg, but what it means to think about democracy, what it means to think about democracy in exile, in the case of Thomas Mann, what it meant to think about escaping McCarthyism in the early 1950s, what it meant to be confronted with the politics of the day from a standpoint that was always that of different modalities of engagement. And this, of course, Mann not only lectured on democracy while he was here in the US, but also wrote his magnum opus, Dr. Faustus, and confronted the legacy of Nazism. Today, of course, it's not just about that history, it's not just about that legacy, but it's also about how do we engage with contemporary issues of global concern. And in that regard, the Thomas Mann House is very much actual, very much about the current issues today. This is where our conference comes from, Moral Code, Ethics in the Digital Age. And again, I want to thank our interdisciplinary group of participants and fellows for being here today and for helping us to delve into these complex issues. I want to mention, in closing, our co-sponsors, UCLA Digital Humanities Program, the Department of Information Studies and the Graduate School of Education and Information Studies, the Department of Germanic Languages, the Department of French and Francophone Studies, and the Division of Humanities at UCLA. A special thanks goes to Vanessa Carlos, who's in the back here, for all of the logistics from the Voice Humanities group. So everything really, truly has been remarkable working with you. I want to thank you for everything you've done to help and bring our fellows here and carry out the program. And a number of folks at the Thomas Mann House, including Josh Videra and Nikolai Blommer, of course, and Tyler Smith, all of whom are here today. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Stephen Levine, who is, many of you may know, as the former president of CalArts. He was the founding director of the Thomas Mann House and now serves as chair of the advisory board of the Thomas Mann House. I introduce to you Stephen Levine. Thank you.
Good morning. I have three easy tasks today. The first is to welcome you, so welcome. Having driven from downtown this morning, encountering drivers with no sign of intelligence, one felt the good side of what artificial intelligence may bring us. Second, to say a word more about the Thomas Mann House. Early on, the charge was to bring the best German thinkers, whatever field they're in, together with their peers in the United States. And Germany, unfortunately, changed Germany very broadly, just to be of a connection with Germany, not German in nationality. Together with their peers in the United States, to address the critical issues of our time. Early on in discussion with the Foreign Office, we basically identified two issues, one being global warming, which we felt we probably couldn't do anything interesting about, and the other was the future of democracy, which is a shared challenge for Europe and the United States at this point. Having entered into this area, you discover that almost any issue you take up these days has bearing on the future of democracy. And certainly not least of all, what will happen to human decision-making under the reign of artificial intelligence. And what kind of continuing empowerment or disempowerment in citizen participation will there be in the decisions of government. So I really handed to him like I've gotten this to artificial intelligence. I asked him how he found Professor Floridi. Floridi or and he said, well, when I started to read my way into this field, his was the first book, one of the first books I chose. I had not known his work before. Knowing I was going to do this, I also turned to him. And I have to say, we could not be more fortunate in our choice of the keynote speaker for this event. I'm not going to read you his biography, except to say that he's professor of philosophy and ethics of information, which is a field that he essentially has created through his writing and his activity at Oxford and a fellow at Exeter. To me, you'll find a biography in the program. What you can't tell from just looking at the biography is that Professor Floridi arrived here out of serious philosophical inquiry, trying to find his way toward a vision, philosophical vision, that was adequate to the actual way we live in the present. So there was a kind of rigor, and I would also say a kind of majesty to the thought process that goes into his writing on the ethics of information, on the digital world we live in, and now reading The Fourth Revolution, which I recommend warmly to you all. It's the kind, and then last night, a few of us were at the Thomas Mann House presentation, and I was able to see firsthand the elegance of mind as we address the questions of how will we find that basis and find a way to live with it going forward. Finally, I'll just say that in addition to the wildly distinguished academic career, which has won all the appropriate awards, maybe some are inappropriate, I don't know, all the appropriate awards, he has also been an amazing citizen of the field. The amount of work he's done with the European Union and in the circles of both corporate and governmental, trying to make sense of how we live in this dispensation, gives us all reason to be grateful for what he's bringing this field. It's a pleasure to introduce Luciano Floridi.
When you forget your 54 and you press wash, that's what happens. I hope to be back on my two legs without pain. So I could spend half an hour just thanking everybody. So I won't do that because we want to go straight to the discussion and topics. But allow me to say that I'm really very grateful, and the determination with which I want to be here, no matter what the destiny was throwing at us, shows that I really meant it when I say it was a great honor. I got this email out of nowhere, out of the blue, saying, Thomas House, I said, oh sure, this must be German, and it shows the ignorance of the professor. And then it turns out that no, it's Los Angeles, and all of a sudden we have this wonderful program. For those of you who were not with us yesterday, I'm really sorry because we had a big time. But hopefully we will enjoy the rest of the day today, and we will plenty of discussions. Now my task here is first of all to get this thing right and show you and tell you a little bit about this immense area of investigation. I will touch so many topics that if you have a sense that this is an appetizer and then we really did a superficial job, skimming through that, well that's correct, that's exactly what we do. It's going to be simple, superficial, borderline trivial. If I fail to make it borderline trivial, that's my fault, because I would like to leave you with a sense of scope of the topics that we are dealing with. Now to do that, this map will come back every now and then. A bit of background, then I will share with you a possible interpretation of artificial intelligence in very broad sense as a divorce. Exactly what kind of divorce, I'll tell you more in a moment. And then the challenges that this divorce is throwing at us. And then why ethics is a way, if not the way, to deal with these challenges. So background, AI as a divorce, challenges and ethics. So the background is very simple. I mean, everybody in his uncle is talking about these ethical issues with AI, ethics, digital ethics, and privacy as a trend for 2019. Well, good morning. Of course, it doesn't take a genius to know that this is where the world is going. Why exactly that's problematic? Well, if you think of just yesterday, we've been exposed to cloud computing and Internet of Things and big data. Well, every now and then, business has to invent a new particular topic. But if you take the massive amount of data that we have accumulated this generation, which is roughly 99% of the data we have on this planet, have been created by us in the last few decades. And artificial intelligence, well, these are the things we will come back during the presentation, are undermining or challenging, shaking up, on the one hand, our private identity. That's a massive amount of data. That's why privacy was not in any course I ever took at the university on ethics to be seen. And yet, in the last 20 years, you cannot go to a conference where privacy is not. So, yes, because we have this massive amount of data, that's what they are digging. But also, we have something like autonomous gadgets that can do things save money with the appearance of some intelligence to solve problems that otherwise would require human intelligence. What that is challenging our intelligent autonomy. Now, identity, autonomy, those were topics that either when I was undergrad, because they define who we are. You pick up any text in document, and those ones that actually say, oh, look, these two are the roots of our identity. So that's why this stuff is a bit challenging. It has been challenging recently. Now, these four revolutions, the book has been mentioned, so I'll be careful not to advertise it too much. But the fourth revolution is not the industrial one that we've been discussing in the context. This is the first three were put together by Freud himself, kind of self-advertising. Say, look, I'll bring you a third revolution. We have been displaced from the center of the world by Copernicus. Didn't mean to, but that was a big deal. It was such a comfortable position by the way, at the center of it. Me, because I'm working L'Oreal style. We retrenched at the center of the biological kingdom. And then Darwin came and said, I'm sorry, Bonk, you're not at the center of that place either. And Freud joined the ship and said, well, I'm staying for one more centrality. The medical space. Remember there's Descartes, Pascal, all that story. Well, the fourth gentleman here is Alan Turing, and of course he has displaced us from the center of the information world or infosphere. Every time we are displaced, something is giving up in terms of our self-understanding, and we have to reinvent exactly why we are so exceptional. Not because we are the center of the universe, not because we are the center of the animal kingdom, or because we are Cartesian minds, thinking, etc., or because we are the best to play chess. Something else has to be there. Now, how did it happen? How this sort of shifting took place? If you pick up a history textbook, it tells you that prehistory is when there are no ICTs, no information and communication technologies. So someone somewhere is still living in prehistory, in the Amazonian region, because they cannot write. Not as in they didn't learn, no, they have no writing culture there. They cannot record the present for future consumption. So if their recipe from grandma didn't reach you, no, vocally, it's lost. About 6,000, or a few hundred years, we moved and we started depending on linking our development to ICTs. Remember, there's no law without a contract. There's no contract without writing. So those tablets that we have from 6,000 years ago, they're all not postcards from the holiday, but how many cows you own. And that's why writing, no, there's no Roman Empire, there's nothing without the possibility of having written somewhere how things went, have to go, will go. That relation has become a dependency. It's not that we have become less historical, some of you may still remember the end of history, as if. No? History has become more historical, if you see what I mean in terms of trajectory. We have been sitting on these ICTs increasingly. That's why today individual and social well-being depends on ICTs. Meaning that if there is a cyber attack today of the United States, you won't even hear me. This will be off. There will be no electricity, no nothing. Will be back to from clouds and sticks. So those who live by the digit die by the digit. That's how dependency looks like today. So we live in terms of time, in terms of hyperhistory, a more historical time than ever before. In terms of space, we live in a space of information. The time when grandma used to walk inside the computer was replaced by her daughter outside. But today, her granddaughter is inside again. It's just that she doesn't notice unless you stop working. Connectivity, I can't get it on. Back in Oxfordshire, in my house, we have to be on the window saying, maybe it's a... Well, you remember that normally, otherwise you will be living in the infosphere. So when people start thinking, oh, are you online, are you offline, you must be from the 90s, okay? That question is not asked by any kid, worth any mobile phone. Because we live online all the time. Which doesn't mean that we are disconnected or connected. Any mobile phone in this room at the moment, which is turned on, has about 20 apps, more or less, on average, and every app, on average, is sending you geolocation once a minute. That's so much disconnected we are. So clearly, we live in an infosphere space, hyperhistorically, on life. Most of us say, how many? Oh, but there's someone who never made a telephone call. Of course. Do you really think I don't think about it? And the life of someone who never made a telephone call is determined by who? Those who made that telephone So don't forget that if there is a billion people, or just to be more clear, 700 million people who don't have access to clean water every morning, remember, 700 million, that's 10% of humanity, does not have access to clean water every morning, well, their life is dependent upon those who are hyperhistorically living in the sphere on life and don't get that clean water where it should be. So the telephone caller, I don't want to hear that because it's discharging responsibilities here. So that's the background. What about AI? What's the role in all this? So, well, I said, I think it's a divorce. I know that's not what we've been sold, and I understand why it hasn't been sold as a divorce, it has been sold as a marriage. On the one hand, you have animal intelligence of some kind. Well, this were Darth Maul in the 50s. Some way of solving problems by thinking. Maybe your cat, your dog, a rat, a spider, or maybe a human being. And on the other hand, you have engineered artifact. What's the best thing to do? We can marry engineered artifact with human intelligence, both, and we get AI. Not ever. It didn't work, has not worked, and that cognitive trend has gone nowhere. What did work was the divorce. How about making sure that if you need to solve that problem with an engineered artifact, you don't have to be intelligent? Now we're talking. That's why my iPhone wins anyone in this room with zero intelligence worth mentioning has the intelligence of a kettle. Of course. Better chance than anyone? Trivia. We had divorce, the ability of having some agency, the capacity to perform a task, fulfill a goal, parking a car, for example, from any need to be intelligent doing so. So if anyone here is in the business sector, accidentally, that's where you need to look in your business. Where can I do something without any intelligence? Their AI will be fantastic, magnificent. Intelligence required? That's going to be complicated. Complicated, not impossible, but just complicated. More in a moment about this business of complication. So how does it work? How can a divorce work? If the two things have been separated, surely, to deal with the world, you need to be intelligent. If you're not intelligent, you fail. Not true. Why? Because of all these reasons. The low cost, amazing. More computation we ever dream. Again, your average iPhone, man on the moon, etc. comparison, we all know that. More data, I told you, 99% of the data we have, which is gazillions, has been created by us in the last couple of decades. Oh, cats on Facebook included. I'm not talking about just Shakespeare, but not quality, quantity. Better machine learning. Of course, the engineers here have done fantastic things. Algorithms, solutions, statistical methods, better algorithms, definitely. More Internet of Things, meaning things talking to each other, and more on life. That's where we spend most of the time anyway. So how come that Netflix knows what movies do I like? Well, you've been on Netflix for hours. Of course, it can run an algorithm thinking, if you like this, you may like that, more or less. How does Amazon know that if I like that book, I may like the other book? Well, that's where you bought the book in the first place. So when it comes to who is native here, is the artifact. We scuba dive in the infosphere. We need tanks. Those things, they are the fish. And they are digital stuff, interacting with digital stuff within a digital environment. Obviously, they're more efficient than us, easily. What exactly, therefore, is happening here? That's why the picture in the background. Can you see the man, top left, in the little square? Their environment is not for a human being. It's for machines. In engineering, we build environments around machines to make sure that machines are successful. That is a real car factory. That space is called envelope. Nothing fancy, it's just mechanical engineering. And the envelope is the 3D space within which the machine, intelligent or not, depending on your AI, works successfully. For example, a dishwasher. You build a whole box around the simple abilities of the soap, water. No one in his right mind does the dishes that way, okay? But the dishwasher does it. Box inside. So using that, what's the future that we start looking at? It's an enveloping of the world around the abilities of those machines. So I was joking yesterday saying that back home we just changed the sofa because my Roomba just couldn't go under it. And robot doesn't do under the sofa, so you change your sofa. You adapt the sofa to your robot, because the robot otherwise doesn't clean under the piece of furniture. Now, in this context, therefore, this is what we are not going to see. This is a real stuff. It's produced by a group of researchers in Madrid. It is a robot that does ironing. It's what we normally think. I do this way, therefore that's the best way, therefore whatever dishwasher. Because if I'm waiting for someone to do the dishes like me in the kitchen, you can wait for a long time. I suspect, whatever, in terms of the same robot walking into the kitchen and doing the dishes, jumping into the car and driving. Driverless cars, we don't have robots that drive the cars like us. We are rethinking cars and the environment. So what is really working? Yes. This is the thing that is already on sale. $3,000, and that's the cost for you. Meaning, well, not that I would like to buy it, no, it's still first step, and probably needs to be refined, but you can tell what the logic here is. Enveloping around the abilities of the machine, not putting a machine into the wild where it will not be able to cope. So, within this world, enveloping, divorce, will be hyped historically, depending more and more on these technologies. In a space that's made of information, infosphere, our life is constantly on life. What challenges? That's the second part. So the challenges are many, but they have been with us for some time. How long? About half a century, which is, finally someone should notice that I go to college and say, there's a problem with ethics of AI. Yeah, that has been a long time. We've been shouting at you, my dear, for the past 60 years. Those two articles, for those of you too far away, are from Science. One was written by Norbert Wiener in 1960. The other one is a reply by Arthur Samuel. Wiener was the father of cybernetics. Samuel is the father of machine learning, the actual guy who actually invented the terminology. One is a bit concerned about these machines, Wiener. The other one says that it's going to be okay. That debate has been going on ping-pong for the past half a century. It's just that the difference now is that now it's happening on the tabloid, no longer in Science magazine. That makes a difference, because then if it's on the tabloid, then both business and politicians pay attention. And if they do, they start getting worried. Now, you hear a lot of fancy stories about computers coming, taking our life, our children, and so that, not for today, or maybe for the Q&A. I want to talk about the real challenges. This is a distraction. The big bad robot, Terminator, Skynet, seriously. We were delighted just half an hour ago when we connected this laptop to that thing. How it works, oh, good. We're done. That's fantastic. The conference here. That's where we are as we speak, and where we are going to be for the foreseeable future. So, relax, calm down. There's a distraction, and it's an irresponsible distraction. I have colleagues, unfortunately, who still these days go online or on TV and say, the biggest possible challenge for humanity is AI taking over. I would like them to go and join the 700 million people without clean water. That is disgraceful. And I'm recording this. Let me repeat. A disgraceful, indecent distraction when humanity is in this predicament. So let's not get distracted, but there are plenty of other problems. It's not like, oh, okay, fine, therefore Robocop, or Terminator, or anything like that. It's not coming, who cares? No, we've got plenty of problems. AI could be used really well and plenty of opportunities, enabling self-realization for us, enhancing human agency, like a good sort of powerful help. It could increase societal capabilities we heard before. It could actually give us a hand with this society that is getting polarized and not nicely. And it could cultivate societal cohesion. These are all good things that are happening as we speak. However, there's plenty of things that go really wrong. The same stuff has an other side. It could devalue human skills. It could remove human responsibility very easily. It could reduce human control. And it could erode human self-determination. Remember? Who am I? My autonomy and my identity? Well, that could also be the same kind of asset that corrodes that particular stuff. And something that we don't hear much, but the health sector is plenty of onside this. We could just not use it. And if you don't use something, I'm no longer Catholic, but I used to be, sin of omission, if you don't do something nice, well, that's the sin as well. I'm afraid, my dear boy. So failing to do something nice is a problem. It's called, in economics, an opportunity cost. And the opportunity cost that we have today for lack of understanding what's right and wrong are mounting, especially in the health sector, for example, or in the environment. Now, what exactly are we talking about? I'll give you 5 sort of lines of potential development where all this green, amber, and red play a role. First of all, we could make AI work against wrongdoing. We're not exactly doing that, but remember, we are very vulnerable. And any discussion, for example, in San Francisco about face recognition, that is exactly what I'm talking about. Are we doing the right thing? Are we sort of protecting the vulnerability of these agents, or are we suffering from? We could make AI enhance human decisions and control. Remember that this is one of the biggest challenges we have in terms of, generally speaking, environment and society. We're walking into a world that is increasingly complex. We can't do anything about it. That's the way humanity sort of develops. And we've been solving complexity by throwing more complexity at complexity. What you see there is just a projection, quite uncontroversial, of where everybody will be living in the future. LA plus, essentially. Immense urban environments, where just the complexity of making sure that every morning, groceries arrive and rubbish is collected, it's just already, even that, is static. So when you hear smart cities, stuff like that, well, that's the direction of traveling we should take. AI for complexity, absolutely. But mind, because we're also increasing the dependency. A smart city is a city that could be easily prey of a cyber attack. We should make AI support human responsibility, not the other way around. Not like removing responsibility, but make sure that responsibility is properly allocated. Exactly in what direction? Well, take a serious direction. Care for the environment. That's a huge responsibility we have today. And honestly, luckily, in Europe, the recent elections for the European Union have shown that someone started thinking about this a bit more seriously. Polarization, etc., more nationalist, but also way more of a green sort of impact. That's good news. Exactly how could AI work here? I told you. I promised to be shallow, so more shallow stuff coming. But in the past, for a long, long time, and we're talking essentially all human history until yesterday, we have lived in a sort of circular economy because we could not afford to throw away anything. The reason why we don't have so many artifacts from ages where iron was, well, because that piece of iron was going to be reused and reused and reused. You don't find broken stuff around from millennia ago. So that circularity was born. Much more recently, post-war consumerism, just to give some kind of vague idea, we moved to a linear sort of economy. Take, build, consume, throw away. Take, build, consume, right? All the time. That was the way, I remind some people sometimes, oh, that was disgraceful, but that's also the way in which we make sure that hundreds of millions of people got out of poverty. So there was a price to pay, a better one, see the apartment. There was technology that made the move. You had to buy a fridge. At some point, that fridge had to be thrown away, inevitably. It was not recyclable. And you bought another one, and maybe another one. What we want to have AI to do for us is to join these two trends. So more technology, no less, but a smart one. The one that keeps the circularity, because that's a good thing, but in a rich sense. Sharing economy, for example, or green-oriented economy, where you finally not need to work. Your students, a couple of years ago, I said, oh, by the way, how did you pay for university? Oh, I just sold my startup. What kind of startup? Recycling elements that of value inside computers. Where about? In California, of course. Where else? That's the world that we can build. But we need to be very careful, and it requires planning. It has to work for humanity. Now here you hear all possible rubbish, and I might be totally wrong. on that road. Perhaps, now philosophers are well known for being really wrong, sometimes deeply wrong, taking completely the opposite view, but sometimes they also got it right. So, fingers crossed. I'll see you back, say, in 5, 10 years. I actually learned from my friends in Cambridge. In 100 years, I'll see you in 100 years, when what I've said will have happened. The challenge here is work, of course. But let me show you this. This is America. Is the number of people missing in the job market for truck driving. And if you look, some of that is a projection, but most of it, 2010, 2019, 18, 17, it's data. It's a scissor. It's opening up. We don't have enough truck drivers. Oh, a truck driver, I'm told. It's a specialized job and a decent salary, pretty much like an associate professor. Always, an attending career for someone who decides enough of bureaucracy. Why? Well, because these driverless cars might be coming one day, maybe in an airport. Now the discussion is no longer when, it's all about where they will take place. And also because, of course, a truck driver doesn't simply drive from A to B. He opens the gate, he checks the documents, he makes sure that anything is not wrong in the back, and so on. So, well, just the truck driver. No, this again, US, the car industry, manufacturing, how many jobs are back? You see that deep crisis, 2009, 2010, and back over there. So recently talking to a car manufacturer in Germany, one of the big ones, I said, Luciano, we've been squeezing jobs in our context for so long, you must be joking. Now, we introduced robots a long time ago. Today, every time we introduce a robot, we need an engineer. So the time when you introduce a robot to replace someone has already happened. Now again, no rosy picture here at all. But let's be realistic. Data. And speaking of data, these are the projections. You're not supposed to see the details, just the bubble. These are the most recent projections about how many US jobs predicted to be lost to automation. Now, if a graduate student presents that kind of table, you send the graduate student back and say like, okay, so this is all over the place. This is not like a clear analysis. Is that possible that no one can agree on what data are reliable? It's a matter of interviews, of impressions. So I call 1,000 people, and well, please tell me you don't call 1,000 people in the car industry that are investing in autonomous automobile, because that's what you're going to get. So careful about sort of projections, because a couple of mistakes are made, and regularly made here. Work is a pie. No, it isn't. Nowhere is economy 101. Work is not a finite amount that if you take it, I don't have it. If the robot does it, I don't have that slice. It's boundless, the amount of work we can do. Just a reminder, next Saturday and Sunday when you work at home and clean the house, at some point you just draw a line and say, okay, enough is enough. Not because there wasn't enough to do more and more and more, no more money, no more time, no more something. So what's the real threshold here? Is boundless economically viable? What is the threshold? Does it make sense to have this as work transformed into a job? It may or may not. And that's complicated. So, how complicated? A simple case. Like banking revamps to affect thousands of jobs. If you can read that, it sent home 6,240 people and hired 8,240. I said, oh, that's great news. 2,000 people employed. No. The philosopher on one hand, on the other hand, no rosy picture here either. Because the people who have been employed are not probably the same who have been sent home. So there is a big problem here. The problem, however, is not that jobs will disappear, oh my goodness, but rather there's a generation here that will pay the cost of the advantages that the future generations will cash in. And at some point we need to start thinking how much we want to borrow from the future to help the present generation to bridge the gap. Those 6,000 more people sent home, well, maybe they'll say, I don't know, just joking. Half have been reemployed, the other half not. Your ordinary person who's sent home is not going to become a webmaster tomorrow. And therefore, we need to be careful about this. But not in the trivial sense, robot coming, job going, what are we going to do with humanity tomorrow? It's easy. So all this last point should make us way more human. And that's where autonomy comes back. That's why I said, no, this is one of the things that really we should be careful about. Now, in this context, ethics, and I'll need to be quick because we don't have much time, I'm fine. How do we deal with all this in a sort of more strategic way? Well, if we go back to the Renaissance, this is a work that I hope no one has read here because it's terrible. I mean, it's boring, it's confusing, but it is the manifesto of the Renaissance as we know it. It's the dignity of man, and in that particular work, this Italian philosopher, Pico della Mirandola, mentioned the fact that humanity is not quite there. It's not an angel, it's not a brute or a robot. It's halfway. A work in progress. We would say today open software. Unwritten text, not at the top of the chain of being, because it doesn't belong there. Now, if you start thinking in terms of us not belonging, then I'd like to introduce this idea that we are a beautiful glitch in this universe. Now, for those of you, or those of us who are religious, they think, no, this is not a glitch, it's not a bug, it's a feature. Someone out there has designed this. I'm happy for anyone to go down the road. It's open, completely open. It's also open, the rule of saying, lottery ticket, he went this way. It's a glitch, it's a beautiful glitch, it happened. And as a glitch, it's probably not going to happen again. It's very hard when you have a beautiful glitch sort of happening on a regular. So it's not only a glitch, it's a feature. So for those of you who are both Java oriented, I hope that you get the joke. It's a terrible joke for nerds. But we are nature's non-fatal exception, okay? There's no Java fatal exception saying, whoa, and the screen doesn't move anymore. No, the deep blue screen of Microsoft, we're not that kind of sort of exception. But exception actually has improved itself quite remarkably. Today, the best way of looking at ourselves is as informational organism. We're not just informational organisms, in the same way as I was not when I was told, like a kid, which was wrong anyway, that was 90% water anyway, so the difference between me and a Java Nescafe was negligible. No, first of all, it's not true. There's much less water in me than 90%. I discovered later on. I think it's 67. Again, on record, someone will Google for this. We have different views about humanity. We can look at ourselves as a chemical organism, as this, as that, and something else, brutes, angels, and so on. Or, today, 21st century, digital revolution, as information organism. We, and our identities are, as I said before, fragile, vulnerable, and we are unleashing this very powerful technology that bumps against this fragile entity. We need to be careful. Now, careful means having a 21st century project, a human project for the beautiful glitch. Sounds nice, doesn't it? How exactly do we do it? Well, coming to the end of, landing now with the talk, so your patience has been rewarded. That's what ethics can do for us. But has to be an ethics for the 21st century. Exactly what kind of ethics are we talking about? Well, this distinction was not in the books that I read when I was a grad student, so I had to introduce it. You deal with governments and companies, and they ask you, what's the right thing to do here? Over and above compliance. What do you mean compliance? Oh, yeah, the law is okay. I'm not going to use ethics as a hard ethics to fight the law. For those of you who get the hint, I'm not going to sit in that corner of the bus, okay? Just to make sure that anyone else will be able to sit on any seat, on any bus in this country. That's not the hard ethics that we're talking about. I'm talking about the soft one, saying, I'm a company, I'm a government, so I go with the law, but I want to do more. Going with the law means playing according to the rules. Asking what ethics can do for you is, how do I win playing according to the rules? Because according to the rules, that's not good enough, otherwise I would be a great chess player. On the other side, there's human rights, which we also want to comply with. The open space in front of us, that's exactly one more, and extra can be done. What exactly does that look like? Well, we started a project some time ago. I mentioned this not in sort of self-congratulatory way as well, but because we were the first to propose a bit of a comparative analysis of all these ethics of AI around. mind that if you check today, there are something like 70 plus codes, frameworks, set of principles for good AI. 70. Surely someone is going around shopping and say, oh, I like this, this, and that. Can I get, half a kilo of this and 2 liters of. Now that's not the way we should progress. So we did a bit of an analysis. Back in Europe with that project, we checked these 6 projects, which are supposed to be able to read, just documenting that we did our homework. We checked these 6 projects, which were the main projects only until last year, and we lifted 47 principles, which we then ended up by having under 5 categories. Why 5? Well, 4 come from bioethics, because that's where you deal with agency anyway. So beneficence, non-beneficence, autonomy, justice, they all come from very well-trodden bioethical discussions. Number 5, well, that's what you need extra in AI, because we also need explainability. We need to know exactly what's going on in those machines, as users and as engineers. The effect has been quite remarkable, I have to say. So once we published this and we started sort of circulating, look, it's not 47, it's 5. And we can get away with a bit of agreement or consensus around this 5 to develop that kind of AI which does those 5 things, etc. Well, what has happened next, if you look at the bottom line, once we published it as AI for People, then the European Commission, the high-level expert group, adopted those 5, transformed them a bit, and published them as recently in April as 7 principles, but more or less is the same source. And the OECD only recently, and we talked about weeks ago, in fact a couple of weeks, has adopted the European framework, which was based on AI for People. So we start getting into a context where this consensus will then be arising. Meaning we start getting into some kind of rules, understanding what soft ethics looks like, how we can win the game by playing the right game, as opposed to just the minimum compliance, which is by law required. So what's the future like? Well, the conclusion is that until recently, if you were going to a conference with especially a lot of nerds and business people, it was all about technological innovation. Innovate also because that makes the average politician salivate. Innovation means jobs, money, growth. What's better? The truth is that we know that today that technological innovation is important, but it's not going to play the key role, because the governance of the digital, rather than the technology innovation, is the difficult bit. Especially if you're a big company, you're just going to buy someone, just a great startup around the corner and invest in technology innovation. If you are Apple and your technology innovation is to make sure that you price your next iPhone perfectly, that is a bit disappointing for Steve Jobs. So how we handle all this, that is going to be the next challenge. The idea is that we should have this as a good challenge, as what happened if you live in a hyper-historical time. The digital age, our age, is the age of design, as opposed to what? It's not the age of invention, and it's not the age of discovery. And those are the 3 things that do innovation. Imagine a stool, on 3 legs. Whenever we do innovation, we do one of the 3 things in a combination. We have the age of discoveries, we have the age of traveling, and the age of invention. But if you had to put one label only, hopefully all of them, but only one, on our age, isn't that the age of design? Made in China, in somewhere else. That's what makes the added value. That's where intelligence makes a difference. So the good design is crucial. And that's where we go back to what initially we said about society and the environment. We need to design a new project. AI can be a force for good if we do it properly. But then we need to have these 2 forces as allies. In the same way as we have created a divorce between intelligence and agency, we need to make a marriage between that agency and the environment that is being affected by us. So one divorce, one marriage, as simple as that. The marriage is between the green and the blue, the green of the environment and the blue of the technologies. Remember, circular, rich, all together. That is the future. And for that, all we need to do is one more divorce. You understand it? So coupling and decoupling is for another day, but that's what the digital does for us. We need to decouple capitalism from consumerism. Capitalism is a great engine. It's the only engine we know to create growth, wealth, improve living standards. So you really want to throw that away? I don't think so. But water baby, we can separate them. We can not have capitalism as consumeristic. We could have a capitalism based on, I don't have the word, fosterism. Please find a better word, because that stinks. But fostering the world as opposed to consuming the world to the bone. And you know, we have already passed how much we have consumed this year, not renewable. But that is the kind of world that we should really invest intelligence in. If this sounds political, it's because it is political. Capital P, no sort of politics, small p. So politics, AI, technology, green society, they're all part of the same complexity. What we need for this, and that's the last promise, well, we need some courage, which I find lacking all over the place. You need to think differently. When people say, oh, Rob's coming to get my jobs, think for a moment, just check the data, Google it for goodness sake. Trust first, because we have been able to do things on this planet that are unimaginable, for bad and for good. Let's concentrate on the good. Now, if you can put a man on the moon, for goodness sake, surely, you know, we can do something good here as well. Hope against the current, because normally people are pessimistic. It just takes a good brain to be pessimistic. In fact, if you have a good brain, you should be pessimistic. So optimism is an acquired taste. It takes effort. It's like running uphill. Yes, but that is exactly what we need here. And if you don't make that sort of optimist naive, no, if you don't return like children, you will not enter, if you remember the New Testament. That's exactly what I'm talking about here. And then we need to improve, even if it's a bit risky. For goodness sake, you know, all this cautious, and now I'm talking as a European, we need to risk more because what is at stake is too high. Society and the planet. For any generation that wants to have a bit of a challenge, well, we have our own, so we better tackle it. Thank you so much.